Have you ever started a new job thinking, this is it, this is the one, only to realize a few weeks later, you might have made a terrible mistake? Yeah, that was me. I still remember the excitement buzzing through my chest as I walked into that shiny glass building for the first time. It was my first real job after college, a marketing coordinator position at a mid-sized agency downtown. Not one of those unpaid internships or part-time gigs where you made coffee and updated spreadsheets. No, this was real. Salary, benefits, my own desk, even my own little nameplate. At 23 years old, it felt like I was finally stepping into adulthood. I'd spent weeks preparing for the interview, obsessively Googling common marketing questions, rehearsing my strengths and weaknesses speech in front of the bathroom mirror. When they called to offer me the job, I actually screamed out loud. It was everything I'd wanted: stability, a career path, the start of something bigger. Walking into the office that first day, I felt like anything was possible. The space was modern and sleek, all open floor plans and glass conference rooms with weird inspirational quotes on the walls like, "Creativity takes courage," and "Disrupt the ordinary." People buzzed around in stylish business casual outfits, clutching their laptops and reusable coffee cups. I remember thinking, these are my people now. My manager, Lisa, greeted me at the front desk. She was in her mid-30s, all sharp blazers and confident smiles. She shook my hand firmly, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "We're really excited to have you on board. I think you're going to fit in perfectly here." God, that felt good to hear. For the first few weeks, everything seemed great. Sure, the workload was heavy, lots of client meetings, endless email chains, tight deadlines, but I was eager. I wanted to prove myself. I'd stay late tweaking PowerPoint presentations, volunteering for extra projects, trying to soak up everything I could. The team seemed friendly enough. There was Mark from Creative, who always cracked jokes during meetings. Jenna from PR, who took me out for coffee on my second day and warned me, half-jokingly, to watch out for Lisa's temper. Even the CEO, a tall, intimidating man named David, nodded at me once in the hallway. I took that as a win. It wasn't perfect, of course. I noticed little things, like how people's smiles didn't always reach their eyes, how certain conversations would suddenly stop when Lisa walked into the room. But I brushed it off. Every workplace has its quirks, right? At that time, I told myself, you're lucky to be here. Just work hard, stay positive, and everything will be fine. I wanted so badly to belong. I wanted this job to be the beginning of my dream career. I wanted to make my parents proud, to finally feel like all those sleepless nights studying had led to something real. But looking back now, there were signs. There were always signs. And pretty soon, those small cracks I ignored in the beginning, they started to split wide open. The first real crack showed up around my third month. It was a Thursday, one of those endless dragging Thursdays where you could practically feel the weight of Friday just out of reach. I was working late, trying to finish a client proposal that Lisa had asked for ASAP. It was already 7:30 p.m., the office mostly dark except for a few scattered lights and the hum of cleaning crews. I was tired. I was hungry. But I was determined to finish. At some point, Lisa walked by my desk, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. She leaned over my screen, eyes scanning the document. I waited, holding my breath. Finally, she said without looking at me, "This isn't good enough." No explanation. No feedback. Just that. Then she walked away. I sat there, staring at the screen, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. I had poured hours into that proposal. Researched, formatted, double-checked every statistic. I wanted so badly for it to be perfect. And now, just like that, it was dismissed. But fine, I told myself. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she had higher standards. I'd learn. I'd get better. Except, it kept happening. Over the next few weeks, Lisa's attitude toward me shifted. The warmth from my first day was gone, replaced by cold, clipped emails full of passive-aggressive comments. Your work. Please review what attention to detail means. Need you to think before submitting next time. Meetings became tense. Every time I spoke up with an idea, Lisa would shoot it down with a tight smile. If I made a mistake, even a small one, she'd bring it up in front of the whole team. Not in a cruel, screaming way. No, it was worse than that. It was subtle. I could feel the judgment simmering underneath her words, like a teacher disappointed in a hopeless student. And it wasn't just Lisa. I started noticing Jenna, the one who had taken me for coffee, avoiding me in the hallways. Mark's jokes around me became quieter. The casual chit-chat I used to be part of during lunch slowly dried up. People would lower their voices when I walked by, glance at me, then look away. It was like some invisible mark had been painted on me. I didn't know what I'd done. Had I offended someone? Was I not working hard enough? Was there some unspoken rule I had broken? I started doubting everything. Every email I sent, every meeting I attended, every project I touched, it all felt like a potential landmine. I'd lie awake at night replaying conversations in my head, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. It was exhausting. It was lonely. And the worst part was, I couldn't tell anyone. I mean, what would I even say? Hey, I think my boss hates me and my coworkers are ghosting me? It sounded paranoid. It sounded dramatic. And more than anything, I didn't want to be that person, the new hire who couldn't hack it. So, I kept smiling. I kept nodding. I kept telling everyone, my parents, my friends, even myself, that everything was fine. Work's great, I'd say, forcing a smile during Sunday dinners. Just busy, you know how it is. Inside, though, I was starting to crack. Every Sunday night, I'd feel this knot tightening in my stomach, this creeping dread about Monday morning. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wishing for some magical reason not to go. A flat tire. A snowstorm. Even just a cold. Anything to give me a break. But Monday always came. And I'd drag myself back to that glass building, paste on a smile, and brace for whatever was waiting for me. At the time, I kept thinking, maybe this is normal. Maybe this is just what being an adult feels like. Maybe I'm just not tough enough. But deep down, something inside me knew. Something inside me whispered, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And then, one afternoon, something happened that made it impossible to ignore anymore. It happened on a random Tuesday. I remember because it was raining, the kind of cold, relentless rain that seeps into your bones. I got to the office soaked despite my umbrella, my shoes squishing with every step. When I walked in, the atmosphere felt different, quieter, tighter, almost like the air itself was heavy. I shook off the feeling, hung up my coat, and headed to my desk. That's when I saw it. An email thread, accidentally left open on Jenna's computer. She sat right across from me. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear. But my name was right there, bolded in the subject line. Handling, my name. Curious, and a little sick to my stomach, I read just a few lines. Enough to realize. They were talking about me. Jenna, Mark, even Lisa, my own boss, were discussing how I was too sensitive, how I needed to toughen up, and how maybe it wasn't worth investing too much in someone who clearly wasn't a cultural fit. I froze. The blood drained from my face. I backed away from Jenna's desk like I had touched something hot. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might punch right out of my chest. I grabbed my bag, mumbled something about a coffee run, and practically ran out of the building. Outside, the rain slammed into me, cold and punishing. But honestly, it felt better than being inside. I wandered aimlessly for almost an hour. Down empty streets. Past coffee shops glowing warm and inviting. Places I didn't feel like I belonged anymore. I ended up sitting on a bench at some random park, soaked and shivering, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. Have you ever felt completely invisible? Like no matter how hard you try, no one even sees you, or worse, they see you and they don't care. That was me. Right there, in that moment. And yet, despite everything, I still went back the next day. Crazy, right? But I told myself, maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe if I just worked harder, smiled bigger, tried more, things would turn around. Spoiler, they didn't. Over the next few weeks, the isolation got worse. People stopped inviting me to meetings that I was supposed to be in. Projects I had been leading quietly got reassigned. Lisa started giving me impossible tasks with unrealistic deadlines, And when I couldn't meet them, she'd CC the whole team in her scathing emails. It felt like death by 1,000 cuts. Small things, every day. Tiny humiliations stacking up until I barely recognized myself anymore. I stopped speaking up in meetings. What was the point? I stopped suggesting ideas. They'd only get shot down. I stopped looking people in the eye. Couldn't handle seeing the judgment, the pity. One Friday, we had a team lunch. Some company tradition to celebrate a big quarter win. We went to this fancy restaurant downtown. White tablecloths, tiny portions, overpriced everything. I sat at the very end of the long table, next to the interns, while Lisa and Jenna and Mark laughed together at the other end. Not once did anyone make eye contact with me. Not once did anyone ask how I was doing. I picked at my food, forced a few smiles, laughed when it felt appropriate. But inside, it was like watching the party from behind glass. I realized something that day. It wasn't just that they didn't like me. They didn't respect me. And they weren't going to. No matter how hard I tried. No matter how late I stayed. No matter how much I twisted myself into knots to fit whatever version of good employee they had in their heads. That realization hit me like a punch in the gut. And once I saw it, really saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Something inside me started to shift. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. But I was tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Tired of pretending, of chasing approval I was never going to get. I didn't know it yet, but that exhaustion, that deep, soul-level weariness, was the beginning of the end. And then, just a few days later, the moment came that would finally push me over the edge. The moment that would change everything. The Monday after that miserable team lunch, everything felt off. You know that feeling. When the air in a room feels too thick, like something bad is about to happen. I walked into the office and noticed people avoiding my gaze even more than usual. Whispers. Side glances. A couple of awkward silences when I passed by. I thought, maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe it's nothing. But deep down I knew. Something was coming. Around 10 a.m., Lisa called me into her office. She didn't even look up when I walked in, just kept typing on her laptop, her nails clicking like tiny hammers. Sit, she said. Cold. Dismissive. I sat, hands sweating, heart thudding against my ribs. After a long, painful pause, she finally looked at me. There was no kindness in her eyes. No empathy. Just business. We've decided to move you to a different team, she said, her tone clipped. Effective immediately. I blinked. Wait, what? Why? She shrugged, like it wasn't personal. Like it didn't matter. Management feels your skill set might be better utilized elsewhere. It's not a demotion. It's a realignment. But it was a demotion. Everyone knew it. The team they were moving me to. Glorified admin work. No projects. No promotions. No future. I opened my mouth to argue, to defend myself, but Lisa held up a hand. This is not up for discussion, she said. And just like that, it was over. I sat there, stunned, as she turned back to her laptop. Typing, clicking, moving on. Like I was nothing more than an inconvenient email she had to send. Have you ever felt yourself disappearing? Piece by piece, like a sweater unraveling under your own hands? That's how it felt, sitting there. Like everything I had worked for, every late night, every ounce of effort, was being stripped away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I stumbled out of her office, back to my desk. People pretended not to notice. Pretended not to see. Pretended I wasn't drowning right there in front of them. I packed up my things slowly. Photographs. Post-it notes. The little cactus plant Jenna had given me my first week, a fake smile, even back then. And then, as I was pulling out the last drawer, I found it. A printed email chain. Slipped between some old reports. I recognized the names immediately. Lisa, Jenna, Mark, and HR. It was dated months ago. Before any of this started. My hands shook as I read it. It wasn't just office gossip. It wasn't just bad chemistry. Lisa had planned it. All of it. The micromanaging. The unrealistic deadlines. The sudden performance concerns. Even the reassignment, it had been discussed for months. They had decided way back then that I wasn't a cultural fit. They didn't want to invest in training me. They didn't want to deal with me at all. So they pushed me out. Slowly, quietly, cruelly. The worst part, I had spent months blaming myself, thinking if I just worked harder, smiled bigger, stayed later, maybe I could fix it. But it had never been about me. It had never mattered what I did. The game had been rigged from the start. I sat there, holding that stupid email, feeling something inside me snap. A clean, sharp break. And in that moment I knew. I wasn't going to sit there and take it anymore. I wasn't going to shrink myself down to fit their narrow little mold. I wasn't going to apologize for existing. I stood up, feeling strangely calm, almost weightless. I walked straight into Lisa's office. No knocking. No hesitation. She looked up, surprised, annoyed. "What is it now?" she snapped. I set the email down on her desk, carefully, watched her face as she realized what it was. And then, I smiled. A real smile. For the first time in months. "I quit," I said. Simple. Clear. Final. Lisa opened her mouth, probably to say something nasty. But I didn't wait around to hear it. I turned around, walked out of her office, past all the fake smiles and awkward glances, past the empty desks and buzzing fluorescent lights, out into the crisp afternoon air. And you know what? For the first time in a long time, I could actually breathe. Walking out of that building felt like stepping off a cliff. Free-falling. Terrifying, but also, somehow, exhilarating. For the first few days, though, it wasn't the freedom people talk about. It was fear. Raw, gnawing fear. I kept waking up early out of habit, heart pounding, mind racing. What did I just do? What now? What if I never find another job? I watched my savings dwindle faster than I expected. I applied for dozens of jobs, marketing, admin, anything that would pay the bills. Sometimes I got interviews. Mostly, I got silence. And every time I refreshed my email and saw nothing, that old voice in my head whispered, "You failed. You weren't good enough." There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking maybe I had made a huge mistake. Maybe Lisa was right about me. Maybe I really wasn't a good fit anywhere. But you know what? Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens in those ugly, messy, terrifying moments when everything falls apart. One afternoon, about a month after I quit, I got a call from an old colleague, someone I barely knew back then. Turns out, she had left the company too, just a few weeks after I did. She had seen what happened to me. She had seen the way I was treated. And she wanted to tell me something. "It wasn't your fault," she said. "They do that to anyone who doesn't fit their mold. You didn't lose, you escaped." I swear, I almost cried right there on the phone. It was the first time someone said it out loud. The first time it wasn't just a whisper in the back of my mind. That one conversation changed everything. I stopped blaming myself. Stopped thinking I needed to shrink to make other people comfortable. Started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a place out there where I didn't have to fight every day just to exist. A few weeks later, I landed a new job. Smaller company. More chaotic. Less prestige. But the difference. There, people said good morning. There, managers actually listened. There, mistakes weren't weapons. They were opportunities to learn. It wasn't perfect. No job ever is. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to wear a mask every day. I could just be me. Looking back now, I realize, quitting that job wasn't a failure. It was the beginning of a new chapter. One where I chose myself. One where I didn't stay small just to fit into someone else's version of success. If you're stuck somewhere that's crushing your soul, if every Sunday night feels like a countdown to misery, if you're constantly questioning your worth because of the way someone treats you, please hear me when I say this. It's not you. It's not your fault. And you deserve better. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes, it's the bravest thing you can do. Call to action. Now I want to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right. Have you ever had a job that made you feel small, broken, or invisible? Backhand index pointing right. Did you stay? Did you leave? Backhand index pointing right. What did you learn from it? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you found even a little bit of yourself in my story, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because trust me, you're not alone. And your story matters. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you in the next one. Waving hand.